Hi, today's Friday, Fact Check Friday. I have a number of stories for you today, including a fact check that the entire media has been wrong on. So stay tuned for that. And just as a reminder, all of these stories, you should be able to skip ahead on the progress bar to the story that you're interested in. If there's a story you don't like, just skip ahead. All the timestamps for every story are in the description. But first, happy Juneteenth. Today is the 19th of June, which is also a holiday called Juneteenth. It is a Texas state holiday, and that's where it originated. Back in 1865, 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation had freed the slaves in the U.S., news finally arrived in Galveston, Texas. By this time, there were an estimated 250,000 enslaved people in Texas. Many people believed this was the end of slavery, but it was not. It only applied to the Confederate States. And this only affected the entire country after the 13th Amendment was ratified later that year in December. Activists are pushing for Juneteenth to be a national holiday, and this year it's even a paid holiday for city workers in Portland, unless you're laid off at the start of the quarantine like me. Thanks a lot, city leaders. Well, here's my take on Juneteenth. It seems that the entire country is trying to do things to lift up black people, and I think that that's great. This holiday is unusual. I know about it because I lived in Texas in the 90s, and when I was there, they had Juneteenth. I'd never heard of it, and they told me about it. But it's an odd holiday to practice everywhere around the country because it only dealt with freeing the people that were in Texas, that they heard the news that they were free. But the 13th Amendment wasn't ratified until later that year, which was in December. Now, I understand if you want to have a holiday, right, the third weekend of June, that's a great time for a party. And the middle of December, not so much. So I can understand choosing this date, but it is an unusual reason to have a celebration. But you know what? I'm all for celebrating. I'm all for having a party, whatever the reason is. I think back to when I was in Dallas. Mainly, I've read that people go fishing and different activities on Juneteenth. For me, the only thing that I did, I was invited to some potlucks. And it was just like a potluck and someone had a grill, barbecue. But the popularity of this Texas holiday seems to have gone nationwide. From The Sun, Indians have used Winnie the Pooh to taunt lookalike President Xi over the border clashes after China banned the cartoon bear. Fears of a war between the two nations have escalated after India claimed its soldiers were mutilated after being beaten to death by Chinese forces, reports India Today. Both countries claim the border as their own, and each have accused the other of overstepping the de facto border known as the Line of Actual Control. Indians have already taken to the streets to burn posters of President Xi, but they now used Winnie the Pooh to poke Beijing. Mention of the cartoon bear with a love of honey are reportedly blocked on Chinese social networks amid comparisons to President Xi. Due to the well-documented censorship of Winnie the Pooh in China, Indian Twitter has been using the hashtag Winnie the Pooh to attack China amid the border struggles. Now, I gotta tell you, this is a story that I don't know enough about. I mean, I understand trolling a president with Twitter hashtags and a cartoon. I get that. But the skirmish between India and China, this border dispute, is really scary when you think about it. Both countries are over 1 million people, and that area of the world is about half the world's population. So this could be something really serious. I don't have enough perspective on it, and I look forward to learning more about what that conflict is. Retro gaming pariah Billy Mitchell has Guinness records reinstated. Billy Mitchell, the man referred to by many as the bad boy of retro gaming, has given his world records back. Mitchell, the star of the 2007 documentary King of Kong and holder of many retro video game world records, including Pac-Man and Donkey Kong milestones, saw his reputation tarnished and his gaming achievements between 1982 and 2010 stripped from the video game record books, most famously the Guinness Book of World Records, back in April 2018. Mitchell was accused of cheating, including using an emulator to achieve his records instead of authentic arcade machines. On Wednesday, Guinness World Records released a statement declaring that after more evidence was received by the company, including newly sourced eyewitness testimony, new expert gameplay analysis, and hardware verification, the records management team had decided to reverse the decision and reinstate the records that were originally stripped. These records included highest score on Donkey Kong, first Pac-Man perfect game, and another highest score on Donkey Kong. Mitchell will also once again be recognized as the first gamer to reach the famous kill screen on Donkey Kong, which occurred during the 1982 record-setting performance, and being the first to clear 1 million points on Donkey Kong. Now, I have done stories about this years ago, 2 years ago, when it originally came out, and originally I had backed Billy Mitchell. I had thought that this was nonsense. I looked into it more. I looked at the evidence. It was clear that he used an emulator. It was clear that he cheated. To have all of his records reinstated is bizarre to me. I don't understand it because the evidence is overwhelming. Overwhelming. You can look further into it. But I don't understand this one. I don't know how they could look into it and come to a different conclusion, because everybody that looked into it, it was pretty clear that he'd used an emulator to get a high score. Facebook takes down Trump ads featuring symbol identical to one Nazis used for concentration camp prisoners. This story is from CBS News. Facebook took down ads on President Trump's page Thursday featuring a symbol identical to one used by Nazis to designate political prisoners in concentration camps. The social media company said the ads violated its policies against, quote, organized hate. The ads opposed left-wing mobs and Antifa, and they appeared on the Facebook pages for President Trump and his re-election campaign, as well as the page for Vice President Pence. The ads started running on Wednesday and were viewed about 1 million times before being taken down, according to Facebook's ad library. The ads feature an upside-down red triangle along with the words, "Dangerous mobs of far-left groups are running through our streets and causing absolute mayhem. They are destroying our cities and rioting. It's absolute madness." The ad calls for supporters to stand by President Trump's decision to designate Antifa, a loose collective of anti-fascist protest movements, as a terrorist organization. According to the Holocaust Memorial and Museum, the Nazis used an identical inverted triangle symbol for camp prisoners with a color-coding system. Red triangle, like those seen in the Trump ads, identified political prisoners, while Jewish political prisoners were classified with a yellow triangle beneath a red triangle. Different colored triangles were used for communists, homosexuals, and other categories of prisoners. The Washington Post first reported on the ads and their connection to Nazi symbolism. Quote, "The Nazis used red triangles to identify their political victims in concentration camps," Anti-Defamation League CEO Jonathan Greenblatt wrote on Twitter. "Using it to attack political opponents is highly offensive. At POTUS's campaign needs to learn its history, as ignorance is no excuse for using Nazi-related symbols." The Trump campaign responded by claiming without evidence that the inverted red triangle is a symbol widely used by Antifa. It also pointed out that a similar triangle is an emoji. Now, this is the fact check for today. Everyone in the media has covered this story, and I'm going to give you information that they are not sharing with you because either they didn't bother to look it up or they don't care. Okay? So the claim is that this inverted red triangle is a Nazi symbol. That may be true. The claim is that Antifa does not use the inverted red symbol as as a symbol, and that's mainly true. I did some searching for Antifa symbols, and clearly the most used symbol is the flag. The second most used symbol is the circle with the 3 arrows in it. I was able to find t-shirts and phone cases and pins that did have the upside down triangle. But the question is, was this used by Antifa, the red triangle? Well, I decided to look up in the Antifa handbook that came out and see if they had any information on the red triangle, something that anyone in the media reporting the story could do, but they all refused. Now, according to Antifa, the Anti-Fascist Handbook by Mark Bray, on page 194, and this is talking about where the name Antifa came from and whatnot. Now, in this, AFA stands for Anti-Fascist Action. You'll see that on the sign a lot, so AFA is Anti-Fascist Action. But here on page 194, it says, Jim chose the name Antifa after hanging out with anti-fascists in Germany and taking their, quote, Europunk aesthetic, as opposed to AFA's reclamation of the red triangle symbol used by the Nazis to label communists. Antifa incorporated the name, style, flags, and other symbols of continental anti-fascism. So right there, in their own handbook, they say that AFA reclaimed the red triangle symbol that was used by Nazis. The anti-fascists in Europe reclaimed the red triangle. Now, this is very similar to the pink triangle, okay? If you remember back to the late 80s, early 90s, before the rainbow flag was the standard symbol for gay, back then, one of the symbols was the pink triangle. I remember this. One of my friends had the pink triangle, and that was a symbol for being gay. And that was reclaimed from the Nazis, right? So because the Nazis used the pink symbol for gays, they were going to reclaim it and use the pink symbol to mean gay and be proud about it. This is the exact same thing that the anti-fascists in Germany did with the red triangle, and it is in the handbook. You can look this up for yourself. Anyone in the media could have looked that up for themselves to see that, yes, indeed, they did use the red triangle. Now, I can't read minds. I don't know why the Trump campaign used the red triangle. We could speculate as to that. Now, I highly doubt it was to send some kind of dog signal. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And if the red triangle, if the inverted red triangle is such a terrible thing, why is it the symbol for Kenwood Electronics? Kenwood is in every Best Buy across the country. They make radios, they make car stereos and speakers and whatnot, and their symbol is the inverted red triangle. This is a totally made-up claim that the inverted red triangle is somehow used as a Nazi symbol, because if that were the case, why are we allowing a big corporation to use it as their own symbol? Just think about that for a minute. This is made up. The Washington Post, when they did their reporting on this, is misleading the public. And everyone else in the media just copied what they did. They report something and then they copy it as well. Now, I think the reason for this is political division, but it's not backed by facts. And as the world's greatest fact checker, this story is false. Now, should they have used a triangle when talking about Antifa? No. They should have picked the flag or the circle with the 3 arrows. That would have been more appropriate. But to claim that it's a hate symbol is just not true. And every fact-checking organization out there got this one wrong. Outdoor Rec just got its own stimulus bill. The Senate passed the Great American Outdoors Act 73-25, allocating billions to recreation. From Outside Magazine, Wednesday, the Senate passed the Great American Outdoors Act, allocating billions to support outdoor recreation in 2 separate ways. The first is to provide $9.5 billion over the next 5 years to help the National Park Service and other federal land management agencies address their shortfalls. Federal public lands are suffering from $20 billion in deferred maintenance costs, with $12 billion of that accumulated by the National Park Service. The second is to mandate that the Land and Water Conservation Fund, widely considered the nation's single best funding tool for outdoor recreation, be permanently financed to its maximum allotment of $900 million annually. In March, the president called for such a bill to land on his desk. For many conservationists, the Great American Outdoors Act has been a lightning bolt out of the blue, sparked by a tweet from President Trump, quote, "I'm calling on Congress to send me a bill that fully and permanently funds the LWCF and restores our national parks," he tweeted on March 3rd. Well, I think that this is great news. I love the national parks, and to get out, it's one of the great joys about living in this country is going to national parks. Perhaps you're able to get out and see one this weekend. Let me know what you think about any of these stories in the comments. Have a great weekend. Peace.